Hi there and welcome to Tech Life, a channel where I aim to review everything from selfie sticks to laptops to IDs for coding, video editing, software producing thumbnails, essentially anything tech related. If you are new to the channel, please consider subscribing. If you have anything that you think I should review, please let me know in the comments and I'll do my best to review that product. In this short video, we will be looking at reference types in JavaScript. Part 3, we looked at primitive types. And in this part, as I say, we will be looking at reference types. Reference types in JavaScript consist of objects, arrays, and functions. We will start off looking at objects and functions. Objects in JavaScript, as with any other programming language, are similar to objects in real life. So, for instance, a car in real life is an object, and in an object-oriented language such as JavaScript, we can represent a car as an object in code. So this diagram shows a car object. An object has properties, the data that is associated to it, and it also has methods and or functions that represent the behavior. So some of the properties of a car might be make, model, color, engine size, and its behavior could be represented by functions or methods such as start engine, stop engine, brake, and accelerate. Okay, so let's fire up Visual Studio Code and see if we can't code up this car objects. So if you've followed along throughout the series so far, you will remember that in the first three parts we were using two files. We were using the HTML file and a .js file. So hey, we're going to reuse these. The first one obviously is called homepage.html and the second one is called output.js. So we're going to reuse both of these. We're going to place the code for the object in the JavaScript file. I'm going to put a comment in first, and in order to place a comment in a JS file, we use the 2 forward slashes, and I'm just going to say create object. And in order to create an object in JavaScript, we use a keyword let, L-E-T. We give our object a name, and I'm going to call mine car. And then we use equal sign, and then that is followed with open and close curly braces. And the properties and functions for the object will sit within these curly braces. Properties within an object in JavaScript are essentially key value pairs. So the first property is going to be called make. So we're going to call it make, and then we use the colon, and then we're going to give this property a value. It's going to be a string, so it's going to be encased in single quotes, and the make, surprisingly, is going to be Lamborghini, or unsurprisingly, Lamborghini. Properties within JavaScript are separated using a comma, so we're going to use the comma in order to add our second property. The second property is going to be called model, and again it's the name of the property, which is model, and then a colon, and then this again is going to be a string, so it's going to be encased in single quotes, and the model is going to be Gallardo. And then we're going to have one more property, so we're going to separate this one from the next by using a comma again, and the last one is going to be color, and again color is going to be string, so single quotes, and the color is going to be a neon yellow, if that is a color. Excellent. Okay, so now that we've created our object and we've created properties within our object as well. We can actually look at these properties on the console. So if we do something like console log, and then if we use dot notation, obviously first we have to use the object name, which is car, and then we use dot notation, and using dot notation means that we can access these properties that we've just created. So make, model, and color are all there. So if I select color, and we close off this line by placing a semicolon, and now if we go to our home page.html, if we recall from the previous 3 videos, we were calling our .js file from within this HTML page, and we were calling it by using this script tag and placing the name of our JavaScript file within that tag. So now if I run this HTML code, it brings up Lamborghini's Rock. But then if we hit the F12 button to have a look at the console, we can see that neon yellow is output to the console. And the reason it outputs that to the console is because we said color was neon yellow there. Cool. And we can also have a look at all of the properties of car just by outputting to the log the object car. So if I save this, go back to the HTML page, run this, and we hit F12. So we've got the object, and then we can see all the properties of the object. So we can see color, let me zoom in. We can see color, and we can see make, and we can see the model. Excellent. So those are the properties of the object, and obviously the properties are the data of the objects. We can also add functions or methods to an object, and obviously the functions and methods of an object represent the behavior of an object. So for a core object, we could potentially have something like start engine, and if I can spell the word engine. So I've got the name of the object, which is start engine. I'm going to use colons and then the keyword function, and we're going to have brackets followed by the curly braces, and within these curly braces we can put our code for our start engine function. We're going to just keep it simple. We're just going to output to the console.log, and we're just going to put a string onto the log, and it's going to say start engine. I can't spell engine. With an exclamation mark and a semicolon. A couple of points to note. In order to separate our properties, we use the comma to separate the properties, but we also use a comma to separate whatever precedes the properties. In this case, we've got a function, and it's called start engine. In order to call this function, we can do something like we use the name of the object, which is car, and then dot again, and then here you can see the list of properties and functions available, and we're just going to select start engine, open and close braces, and a semicolon. So now when we call output.js from the HTML page, it's going to create our object, it's going to create the properties and give the properties values, and then it's going to come to this function, and it should then run this line of code which outputs start engine to the console. Let's go to, how did we save that? Let's go back to there, we'll do save, and back to the HTML page, Control F5 to run, F12 to view the console, and we can see start engine is output to the console. Cool. Obviously we can have more than one function in an object. So if I copy this, Control C, Control V, and I'm going to say stop engine, change that and the text in the console.log to stop engine, and then copy, Control C, Control V, stop engine. We've got an error there because we need to place a comma after the first function in order to separate the two functions. So in order to separate functions, we place a comma after the closing curly brace, and we've separated the properties in a similar manner by placing commas. Okay, so there's no errors there. Save, go back to the HTML page, Control F5 to run, F12 to have a look at the console, and we can see start engine and stop engine, a text is output to the console, which means that both of those methods, both of those functions have been called. And just for the fun of it, let's create another one. Copy, Control C, Control V, and I'm going to put a comma here to get rid of the error. I'm going to change the name of the function to accelerate, and we're going to change the text to go faster. Okay, that looks good. Control C, Control V, and let's call accelerate. Oops. So now we're calling all three methods. We're calling all three functions. We're calling start engine, stop engine, and accelerate. Control, save that. Control F5 to run, and F12 to have a look at the dev tools. And now we've got the output from all three functions: start engine, stop engine, and go faster. We can also use something called a bracket notation. So in order to manipulate our properties, we can use dot notation and also something called bracket notation. Let's just have a quick look at bracket notation. So we could do something like console.log, and we use parentheses, Within the parentheses, we place the name of our object, which is car. Then we use the square brackets in order to access the property we want. So I'm going to look at color. Oops, wrong place to put the semicolon. Semicolon goes outside the parentheses. So we're saying output to the console.log the value of the property color. So hopefully we should see this neon yellow output to our console. Let's save this. Head over to the homepage HTML. Control F5 to run, and then F12. And there we go, neon yellow. We can also use bracket notation in order to set the value of a property. So we could do something like car, and then the open and close square brackets, and then within these brackets we're going to place the name of the property that we wish to manipulate, and then using the equal sign we can assign a value to this, and I'm going to assign a value of pink. We're going to have a pink Lamborghini. Let's see what this does. So hopefully that should this line of code should change the value of the neon yellow to pink, and then this should print out the changed value. Save this. Homepage.html, Control F5 to run this, and F12 to access the DevTools. And now we have a value of pink as opposed to that neon yellow. Okay, let's move on to functions by themselves. So we've seen functions sitting within objects, but JavaScript allows us to create functions outside of objects. And so we're going to have a quick look at how to do that. I'm going to probably get rid of all this code actually. Yeah, let's get rid of all this. We're not going to need this anymore. So creating a function. That is a comment. So we use the two forward slashes, and we're going to create a very simple function. And in order to do that, we're going to use the keyword function. I'm going to call it myLambo. So this is the name of the function. And we use the parentheses followed by curly braces, and then we put the code of our function within the curly braces. I'm going to keep it nice and simple. We're just going to put something out onto the console log, as we've been doing throughout this series of tutorials. So we're going to say console.log. I'm going to give it a name. So my Lambo today is going to be a Gallardo. Finish off. Oh, I keep placing that semicolon in within the parentheses. It has to go outside of the parentheses, and that's it. That's our first. Oh, it's not actually our first function because we've been creating functions within objects, but this is a function, standalone function in JavaScript, and we can call this function by using its name. So it's just a simple case of making a call to the function by using its name and the open and close parentheses followed by a semicolon. let's go ahead and save this. And we go to the HTML page. And we see the output of the function, which is the name of our Lamborghini, which happens to be a glider today. Obviously, this is a very simple function. Functions within JavaScript or within any other programming language can be quite simple, or quite often they're very complex and there'll be lines and lines of code. But we're going to keep it nice and simple because this is a beginner's tutorial. So that's function. Let's pass in values into our function. So functions, like any other programming language within JavaScript, can take parameters. So let's pass in a parameter to this function. We're going to pass in a parameter called name. So now this function, when we call this function, we're going to have to pass in a value. And then we can change this. Instead of hard coding a value for what we want to output to the log, we're going to output the value that is going to get passed into this function. So name here is a parameter. And now when we call our function, we have to pass in a value into the function. And the value that we pass into a function is called an argument. And the argument we're going to pass in, let's pass in glider again. No, let's not. Let's pass in hurricane. Okay. Okay, so let's have a quick recap. We've changed our function myLambo. We've taken away the hard coding of outputting a value here, and instead we are going to pass in a value as and when we call the function. When we declare our function, the variable that we place in these parentheses are called a parameter. But when we actually come to use our function, the value that we pass in to our function is called an argument. So this value hurricane is an argument. Okay, let's go over to let's go back to output.js and save this, and back to the HTML page. F12, and now we can see the value hurricane is output to the console.log. Excellent. We can also pass in more than one parameter. So we can pass in, let's add another parameter to this function. Okay, let's add color. So adding another parameter to the function myLambo means that when we call this myLambo function, it's going to expect us to pass in two values now. It's going to expect us to pass in two arguments. And on this line, we are calling myLambo, and at the moment we're only passing in one value. So let's change that. So we're going to have a bright red Lamborghini. And I'm going to change this console.log because now I want to output both the name and the color of my Lamborghini. So I'm going to just change this to single quotes my my Lamborghini is A, and we're going to concatenate the value of name to the string. So we've encased my Lamborghini is A in single quotes, and then we've used a plus sign in order to concatenate name, and then I'm going to leave a space, and I'm going to concatenate another string, and its color is another plus sign, and then uh, the variable name color. So hopefully on the log we'll see my Lamborghini is Huracan and its color is bright red. No errors there. Let's save this off. Control F5, F12. My oh, okay. Let's clean this up. We haven't left enough spaces, so there's a space there. Let's stick a space there, and we're okay on that side. Save. Back over to the HTML page. F12. My Lamborghini is a Huracan and its color is bright red. Excellent. Okay, so we've seen how to pass values into a function. We can also retrieve values from a function. So I'm just going to quickly create a small function and show you how to do that. Again, we're going to use a keyword function. We're going to call our function top speed. Top speed. I'm going to pass in a single parameter. That's the parameter name is name. We use the curly braces, and the rest of our code will go in here. I'm going to use a simple if statement, if else statement. So I'm saying if the value of name is equal to Gallardo, and then return (201.9). Return the value 201.9. Okay, so when this is run and the function is called, we're gonna call the function by passing in a name. Hopefully that name will be the name of a Lamborghini, and if the name of that Lamborghini is Gallardo, this if statement will be true. So if this if statement is true, then this function will return this value, and the value is going to return in this case is a decimal. So it's essentially the top speed of a Gallardo, 201.9 miles an hour. Okay, we're going to add another if statement. So I'm going to say else if the name is equal to Huracan, then we're going to return a different value, and we're using the keyword return in order to return a value. And the Huracan is slightly quicker. It's apparently its top speed is 202 miles an hour. We'll do this a couple more times. So I'm gonna copy and paste because I'm too lazy to type all of this out again. So I'm gonna say else if the name is equal to Aventador, then we're going to return a value of think it's 218. 218.1. And lastly, another else if. So if the name now is, I don't know how to pronounce this, to be honest. I'll do my best. Revolut. So if the name is equal to that, then we're going to return our value of 217. So slightly less quick. 217. And I think we're done. We are done. So we can call this a function by using its name. And we pass in a value. And let's pass in Gallardo. Gallardo. But what we're going to do here is we want this output to, okay, let me show you how to do this in two different ways. So first, the one way to do this is to, because we know top speed is going to return something, but we want to be able to use that value. So we need to assign that value to a variable. So we can do something like let top speed, and we can say, so what we've done here, we've declared a variable. It's called top speed. Whatever is returned from this function will be inserted into this variable, and then we can output this variable to the console. Console.log. Top speed. This should work. Save this off. Go to our home page. Control F5 to run that, and F12 to have a look at the dev tools, and we get a value of 201.9, which is the top speed of that Gallardo. Let's go back to here. Okay, so that's one way to output the value returned from this function. Probably a cleaner way to do this is to do this all on one line. So what we can do is we can use the console.log, but instead of passing a variable name to this console.log, we can actually call this top speed function from within this console.log. So we're going to do top speed, and then we're going to pass in, let's pass in Aventador. Aventador, have I spelled it correctly? A-V-E-N-T-A-D-O-R. Cool. So I've commented these two lines out. So these two lines are not going to get run, and the only thing that's going to get executed is this console.log. The console.log is going to call our function, and so it'll come up to here. We passed in a value as an argument, so that argument will come into here, and then if this if statement will get executed, and if there's a matching if statement, which hopefully there will be over here, then this value should be returned. That 218 will be returned back to this console.log. Console.log, again, .log is a function of console. So that will output this 218.1. Let's see that in action. Let's save this. Over to the home page, Control F5, F12, 218.1. Excellent. That is cool. You can call these functions as many times as you like. So Control C, copy, Control V, paste. Save this. Back over to the home page. And now we've got values both for the Aventador and the Revolut. Cool. Okay, let's move on to arrays. Arrays are used to store lists of values. So we could, for example, create an array to store maybe a list of products, maybe for a shopping cart. In order to create an array, we use the keyword let. We give the array a name, obviously, and we use the square brackets to create that array. Let's get rid of all of this. Creating an array, and let's say we use the keyword let. We give our array a name, and I'm going to call mine car spec, and then we use equal sign and square brackets, and that's literally all there is to it. Running that will create an empty array. Save. Console.log car spec. Okay, so now if I save this, let's run the code. So Control F5, F12, and that's our array. There's nothing in there. It's totally blank. There's no data. There's no elements. Let's go ahead and fix that. So we can add values to our array. So we're initializing an array, and I'm going to put in four-wheel drive. So that could be a potential specification of a car. We separate the values in an array using the commas, and a car could be an automatic. And lastly, a car could be a petrol engine car, so I'm going to say petrol. Cool. Let's save this. Save. Run this. Oh, doesn't like that. What did we do wrong? Let's have a quick look. Okay. Silly me. I need to put single quotes around strings. Save this. Hopefully this should work now. F12. And now we can see that the array has the number 3 there, signifying that it has 3 elements, so 3 values stored in it. And then if we drill down into the array, we can see that we have the values four-wheel drive, auto, and petrol. One thing we should note is that the array index starts at 0. So as with languages such as C#, arrays are 0 based. So the very first element in the array is referenced by 0. The second element is then referenced by the number 1, and the third element is referenced by the value 2. So we can see here that the very first element contains four-wheel drive, second element contains auto, and the third element contains petrol. Okay, we can access each individual element of the array by using the index. So I'm going to change this slightly. So it's console.log and then the name of the array, which is car spec, and then I'm going to use square brackets. And in order to access a value stored in the very first element, I'm going to use 0. Save this. Head over to the home page. F12. And we have the value of four-wheel drive because that's what's stored in the first element. Let's do a couple more of these. So if we want the value in the second element, we reference it by the number 1, and then the third element, number 2. Save. And there's all 3 values. Okay. Okay. So JavaScript is a dynamic programming language, which means that we can change not only the length of this array, but we can also put different types of values within this array. So at the moment, car spec contains only strings. So we've encased all of these values in single quotes, which means all of these are strings. JavaScript, however, allows us to insert any type of value into here. So I could put in something like a car spec could be maybe the top speed of a vehicle, so 201.9. And if I save this, head over to the home page, the 3 values that we were outputting are still output, and there's no errors. In order to see this value, we have to have another console.log, and now this element is the 4th element, but it's accessed by the index number 3. Save. And there's our value, 201.9. So we've got 3 strings and then a decimal. That's extremely powerful. Many object-oriented languages don't allow you to do that. Once you create an array, then and if that array is a string array, then it will always be a string array. So not only are arrays dynamic in that you can put in any type of value, we can also change the length of an array. So they are dynamic in length as well. We can show that by doing something like this. We're going to use the name of the array, which is car spec, and then we're going to have square brackets, and we're going to insert a value into car spec, but we want to insert a value into a new element. So at the moment we've got 0, 1, 2, 3. So we're going to insert a value into element number 4, and the element, the value that we're going to insert is going to be maybe the 0 to 60 time. So let's say 3.9. 3.9. Cool. And then here we're going to write out to console.log the value that's potentially contained within element 4. Let's see if this works. Let's save this. Save and Control F5. And then we have the value 3.9. Okay. And so arrays are actually objects. And as we've seen earlier on in this video, objects do have properties, functions, and methods. And this array is no different. In order to make use of those functions or methods, we use dot notation. So we combine that with the name of the array. So our array is called car spec. And if I place a dot just after the name, then we have this list that pops up, and this list is of all the methods and functions that are available to us. One of the more useful ones is called length. Where's length gone? And so this, oops, length. Okay, length. And so this, as the name suggests, actually gives us the length of the array. So it will count the number of elements that are in the array and it will return that number. Let's put this out to the console. Console.log, open parentheses, close, and semicolon. Let me just comment this out. And if you save this, and I'll run this now. The output is 5. So it's counted the number of elements within the array and sent that to the log. There are quite a long list of properties for the array objects, some more useful than others. As I say, length is used quite a lot, especially it comes in handy when we have to iterate over the array in order to get hold of values from different elements. As you can see, there's a long list here. We'll probably cover some of these in later videos. Okay, cool. So I think we've covered everything. So I'm going to wrap this video up. Let's just have a quick recap on what we discussed. We said that reference types in JavaScript consist of objects, arrays, and functions. We looked at objects and functions. We said that objects in JavaScript are the same as objects in real life. We gave an example of a car. We said that objects in JavaScript have properties which represent the object's data, and functions or methods that represent the behavior of an object. In order to create an object, we saw that we use the keyword let. In order to create a function, we use the keyword function. We said that we could pass values into functions. The variables that we use to pass into a function are called parameters, and the actual values we pass in are called arguments. So just to clarify that, the variable at the point of declaring our function is called a parameter, and the value we pass into the function is called the argument. We looked at how to retrieve values from functions by using the keyword return, and we also created functions outside of an object. And lastly, we looked at arrays. We saw that JavaScript arrays are zero indexed, meaning that the first element in the array begins at 0. We saw that JavaScript arrays are dynamic, both in length and type. And finally, we said that arrays are objects, therefore have properties associated to them. and then we can access those properties by using dot notation. Cool. So that's it for this video. Please do hit the like button if you found this to be useful, and maybe even consider subscribing so you don't miss part 5 in this series of JavaScript beginners tutorials. Thank you very much for watching. Hope to see you in the next one. Thank you so much.